And it's funny. I'd expected the English accent to be what we hear when we go to films or listen on the radio, and it's that very, very nice, rolls out the tongue, pleasant to listen to English accent. And East London, in particular Essex, is known for actually having a lot of British like street talk, where it's kind of sloppy, and it's got a lot of slang expressions in it. And so it was very, very rare for me to hear anyone whose accent was so nice that it reminded me of what I thought the British accent was like. But I don't know. You toss in a lot of expressions. It would sound a lot more. You don't say hello there. You say, "Hey, you're right. Yeah, I'm alright. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm alright." And you do that for a little while. You have expressions. Mind how you go? Oh, where are you off to, elders? Hey, my man, how are you? That was Norfolk, which was known particularly for having a really relaxed culture. And so those are just, I don't know, I learned it best with the expressions that I learned there, and sometimes even being back here, it's hard for me to give up an expression like cheers. Is how you say goodbye and thank you at the same time. Oh, cheers, mate. Because those things don't exactly translate directly into English. Even being back, I find it hard to keep them from slipping out from in what I say.
Yeah, so the accents were not really what I expected them to be. A lot of times when you think of England, you kind of think of like the proper, oh, would you like a cup of tea, sir? Like type of accent. But when I got into England, I realized that it was actually not quite like that. The accent is different indeed, and it does sound British, but not quite as posh, specifically up in the Manchester areas. So the first place I went and served at was Liverpool. And Liverpool is kind of known throughout England for their accent. They call it the Scouser accent. And it's kind of like a little bit higher. It's like, "I'm from Liverpool, you're late, mate." It's kind of like a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, a little bit higher up. And so when I was serving there, I always had to be like, "Wait, what did you just say to me?" It took me a little bit of time to get used to it. And one of the things that took me a little bit of time to get used to as well is a common greeting that people have in England is just, "Oh, you all right? Like, you all right, mate?" And so I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right. Does something seem like it's wrong?" But that's kind of a common way that they greet each other. It's just, "Oh, you all right? You all right?" And so I learned quickly to say, "Yeah, I'm all right. You all right?" Just as kind of a common like, "Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing?" That's kind of the equivalent of us saying, "Oh, how are you?" to someone that we haven't seen for a while. The other parts of England don't really have quite the same accent as Liverpool does. When you go up north, it's called the Cumbrian accent. It's like a little bit thicker, and you almost have like some more Scottish influence, especially as you start getting up towards the border. And then Manchester's like a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier. Like, I'm from Manchester, and so it's like a little bit kind of heavier. I don't really know how to explain it beyond that. But in terms of like learning the accent, you don't, as a missionary, you don't need to try to like learn the accent. You don't need to try to speak like everybody else. There will be a lot of phrases. There will be a lot of things of the language that will come, not like just words that you'll start using, and you'll always refer to going back to the flat instead of going back to your apartment. There'll be just a lot of lingo and a lot of words, such as the rubbish bin instead of the garbage can. There'll be just like a lot of words that will kind of come along as you're there. In terms of like specific preparation, I wouldn't worry too much. There's a lot of things that I just kind of picked up as I went along. And in terms of like picking up an English accent, I wouldn't say I really picked up an English accent. I think that there's a lot of ways, like the inflections and how they ask a question. For example, like in America, we ask, "Oh, are you going to the store?" But in England, they'd ask, "Are you going to the store?" Like they'd kind of have like a higher inflection at the end. And I picked up a lot of that on my mission just from always being around English people. And, I think you become a little bit more soft-spoken because Americans, coming from an English perspective, Americans are usually a little bit louder, a little bit kind of boisterous in public, whereas the English are a little bit more reserved and kind of a little bit more keep to themselves in public. And so the accent was fun. It's fun to learn a lot of new words and new lingo, but it's something that, definitely comes.
It's like learning another language. Just like they speak differently. I think it's not just the accent. I think they really enjoy language. The way they organize their language, it's beautiful. But they do have some funny words. Like instead of saying garage, they'd say garage, or instead of saying garbage can, they'd say the rubbish bin, or instead of saying what's up, they would say hey, you're right, or there's so many small things. Car park instead of parking lot. Like instead of semi, they say lorry. I could go on for so long, but you pick up. It's really easy to pick up the type of things that they say. It's not really difficult.
Well, like generally when you hear England, you think of like what we'd say like a posh or fancy Southern England accent, like Queen's English, like banana on the grass, and like it's really drawn out with hard A's and stuff. Our mission's not really like that. You've got Liverpool, which I can't even really do the accent, but it's like Shechen and all sorts of things like that. Where in Manchester, it's not so much like that. It's like, I'm from Manchester, me. And they use a lot of like slang, like they say mate, like in Australian. A lot of the lingo is like rubbish. It's not a trunk or like the hood of a car, it's the boot and the bonnet. A lot of different words that it just takes time, but you're going to have to learn. And as well, like one of the hardest adjustments missionaries have in the mission is that we have like extra dignified language where generally we don't say words like cool, guy, or awesome. We don't say crap because that'll offend English people. Tip for when you go over there, if you're ever going to do peace sign, do this because this is flipping people off in England. So that's something my photo album full of pictures like this and stuff with my friends. Yeah, I had to change those pictures because it's offensive and no one tells you that when you go out. So that's just something neat to know. But basically, depending on where you serve will be the accent. Like Stoke-on-Trent, which is like the Newcastle zone in the south, their accent's completely different to Carlisle. Carlisle's like a mix of Cumbrian and Scottish, which just is confusing. And in Wales, they have a Welsh accent, or they speak Welsh. And it doesn't, so it really depends on where you go. It's completely different. There's a lot of different accents. It's one of the nice things about England, but confusing as well. For your first week, you might not even understand the people. So you'll hear a lot of like people be like, "Oh, cheers," and "Thanks for that." Like cheers is just a way to say thank you. Oh, I'm trying to think what are like some proper is like an adjective you use, like, "Oh, that was proper good," or thanks for that proper meal. It's really strange how it's used, but you just kind of pick it up and over time you go with it. From the top of my head, I can't think of any like expressions or whatever that we'd use all the time, but brilliant, that's one. It'd always be like, "Oh, brilliant," things like that. It's just different adjectives and way of describing things. And when you get there, you'll get a big binder, and in the front of the binder there's like 3 pages of different words, like what you're used to saying in England or what you're used to saying from, I guess you'd say American, there are a lot of Americans in the mission or whatever, to English. And so it all depends on where you learned English, or if you're learning English, it just helps you to know what to say in England. So